بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Many of us, we struggle with maintaining conversations with our parents where we ask ourselves, how can I have a conversation with my mother? What should I speak to her about? What should I speak to my father about? And we innocently sometimes even go up to scholars and say, Sheikh, my mother and my father, they don't know about the culture in America. They don't know anything about social media. They don't speak the same language, and because of that, we feel more comfortable speaking to our friends, and we have lengthy conversations over hours and hours. But with our parents, our conversations, it's like a struggle. Like a car like that's running out of gas. You're just pushing it on the last few fumes, and many of us youngsters struggle with this. Let me take you back to a conversation one great Sahabi had with his mother before he passed away. Now look at this conversation. From this conversation, you can tell, of course, just as much as this conversation speaks volumes about how much respect and honor this young man had for his aged mother, it also tells you about how this mother raised this child. So they both go hand in hand. So of course we already spoke about parents raising children. So this story could actually be used for that as well. But we're going to shine a light on how. Look at this conversation. How this young child who grows up, and now these are his final moments of this life in this world, and he's leaving the house, and what conversation he is having with his mother, and how they're talking to each other. We can take so much from that. And who am I speaking about? I'm speaking about that same child who was the first male child born in Madinah al-Munawwara. When the Sahaba migrated from Mecca to Medina, the Jews, they started telling people that we have cast a spell upon the Muslims, hence they can no longer have male children. And this caused some anxious moments in the hearts of the believers of that time, because only female children were born, or if there was any male children born, they were not surviving. They would pass away early on in their life. So this caused some anxiety among the people who were living in Madinah al-Munawwara. And the first male child who was born in Madinah al-Munawwara, his name was Abdullah ibn Zubair radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. His mother was the daughter of Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu. Her name was Asma bint Abi Bakr. His father, of course, his name was Az-Zubair ibn Awam radiallahu ta'ala anhu. As far as lineage is concerned, it would be hard pressed to find someone with such nobility in his lineage. So, firstly, I said his grandfather is Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. Mother is Asma radiallahu anha. Father is Zubair ibn Awam, who is one of the Ashra Mubashara. Grandmother from his father's side is Safiya bint Abdul Muttalib, and aunt is Aisha bint Abi Bakr. Look at how noble this child is just from his lineage. But still, you have to make an effort yourself throughout your life, and your lineage cannot dictate how far you go in your life. So when he was born, the Sahaba were so happy. You said the day he was born, they went and they placed this child in the hands of Abu Bakr anhu, and he brings this child, his grandson, and all the Sahaba are walking behind Abu Bakr anhu, and they're crying out of happiness. And that he's bringing this child, and he brings him and he places him in the lap of the Prophet ﷺ, and the Prophet ﷺ sees him. He's so happy as well, and he takes a date, puts in his mouth, small particle, they chews it, and then he puts that in the mouth of this baby. So the first thing that entered into his mouth was the blessed saliva of the Prophet ﷺ. And the first words he heard was the words of adhan from his grandfather Abu Bakr radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. Now fast forward many years, and now he is caught in the fitna of Hajjaj bin Yusuf. And Hajjaj bin Yusuf, appointed by Abdul Malik bin Marwan, has surrounded the city of Mecca, and he starts to realize that his days are numbered. And actually, he's pretty confident that he may not survive that day. So what would you do in the final moments of your life? Who would you meet in the final moments of your life? Who would you call, right? And many times we know our answer would be, okay, if my mother and my father, well, I'll do it. But you cannot just end up calling them and having a lengthy conversation with them if you never had it throughout your life. Today we struggle with that, right? So this Sahabi Abdullah ibn Zubair anhu comes to his mother's house. At this time his mother is 100 years old and she is blind. When he walks into the house, he says to his mother, look at this lengthy conversation, I'll just take snippets from it. He says, "Oh my mother, I don't think that I'm going to survive past this day today. I have no one left with me except for a handful of people. And their army is, outnumbered 100 to 1 in some places, right? No one's with me." And he says to his mother, "Ma ra'yuk? What should I do, my mother?" Like he's asking his mother. And the mother says, "Ya bunayya, anta a'lam bi nafsik." "Oh my son, you know better about your conditions, your affairs. I don't know what to say to you. But if you see," then she says, "In kunta ta'lam annaka ala haqqin wa tad'u ila haqqin fasbir alayhi." She says, if you think you're on the right path, then and what you're calling towards is the right haqq, then be patient and don't worry about it. And then she says later on, she says, وَإِلَى كَمْ خُلُودُكُمْ فِي الدُّنْيَا. It's like, let me be honest with me. How much more time are we going to live in this dunya? Our days are already numbered in this dunya the day we were born. So this mother with so much courage is saying this to her child. Like, and this is her last hope. This is her, we say Sahara in Urdu. The person who you're dependent on, the one who takes care of you. This is her son. Her husband has passed away. Her family has left this world. She's 100 years old at this time, but she's saying this open-heartedly to her son. And we'll come to the statement that he makes to his mother, and I want to highlight that later on. Then he says, "Okay, that's fine, oh my mother. I'm telling you, والله ما ركنت إلى الدنيا ولا أحببت الحياة فيها وما دعاني إلى الخروج إلى الغضب لله أن تستحل حرمته ولكني أحببت أن أعلم رأيك." He says that, honestly, I have no inclination towards dunya, and I'm not doing this for anything of dunya. And nor do I have any inclination to live in this dunya. Rather, the only reason why this is happening is because I'm not okay with the oppression that is taking place in the world right now, and I fought and I stood out against it and I spoke against it, and that's why this is happening to me. And when we talk about the story of Abdullah ibn Zubair anhu, we will get more details. But he spoke out against the oppressors, and he was not ready to support the oppressors of the time, and that's why oppressors don't like that. They want to suppress you. They want to suppress your words, and that's why they came to kill him. And the world knows about Hajjaj bin Yusuf and what a great tyrant he was, and how many great righteous people were killed on his hands. Abdullah bin Zubair was one of them. And then he kisses his mother's head. فَقَبَّلَ رَأْسَهَا. He kisses her head. And then he says something so profound. He says, فَانْظُرِي يَا أُمَّا. Oh my mother, let me tell you a secret. I've never told anyone this before. إِنِّي مَقْتُولٌ مِّن يَوْمِ هَذَا. I really think I'm dying today. فَلَا يَشْتَدْ حُزْنُكَ. Please don't be too grieved upon my departure. وَسَلِّمِي لِأَمْرِ اللَّهِ. And just leave me to the matter of Allah, to the decision of Allah. Submit me to that. فَإِنَّ ابْنَكَ لَمْ يَتَعَمَّدْ إِتْيَانَ مُنْكَرٍ قَطُّ وَلَا عَمِلَ بِفَاحِشَةٍ قَطُّ وَلَمْ يَجُرْ فِي حُكْمِ اللَّهِ قَطُّ ولم يغدر في أمان قط ولم يتعمد ظلم مسلم ولا معاهد قط ولم يبلغني ظلم عن عامل فرضيته بل أنكرته ولم يكن عندي آثر من رضا ربي عز وجل قط. First he says all this profound statement, and I say this, he's saying all these things, and this is the one thing I want to highlight today. He says to his mother, "Oh my mother, this is a secret I want to tell you, and you can keep your head up." He says, "Your son, لم يتعمد إتيان منكر قط, has never committed a sin intentionally in his life. Like intentionally, with a plan. As a human being, we make mistakes." Abdullah bin Zubair anhu was known to be one of the most righteous worshippers of his time. Whenever we give examples of ibadah, we talk about Abdullah bin Zubair. He would split his night in like this. One night, he would literally do qiyam all night. The second night, he would do ruku all night. And the third night, he would do sajda all night. One person says, "I saw him doing sajda. At the beginning of the night, I read Surah Baqarah, Surah Ali Imran, And then I read Surah An-Nisa, and he was still in Baqarah. He was still in Sajda, even though after I recited Surah Baqarah, Surah Al Imran, and Surah An-Nisa. Like this person, his ibadah was unlike anybody else. Even the day he was leaving this world, praying salah, and when he would pray salah, he would stand there so firmly, so motionless, that birds would sit on his head, on his shoulders, as if this was a branch of a tree that would not move, and they would just sit there. When he would go in sajda, the similar would be the case. So he said, of course, mistakenly, if I committed a sin, it's a different story. Then he says, وَمَا عَمِلَ بِفَاحِشَةٍ قَدْتُ. And he says, I have never committed an immodest act in my life. Then he says, وَلَمْ يَجْرُ فِي حُكْمِ اللَّهِ قَدْتُ. I have never been brave to disobey the command of Allah. وَلَمْ يَغْدُرْ فِي أَمَانٍ قَدْتُ. Your son, or my mother, has never broken the trust of somebody in his life. وَلَمْ يَتَعَمَّدْ ظُلْمَ مُسْلِمٍ وَلَا مُعَاهِدٍ قَدْتُ. Your son or my mother has never broken the heart of a Muslim or a non-Muslim in his entire life. And he says, I have never heard about oppression taking place anywhere in the world that I was not in favor of it, and I made an effort to stop that oppression to the best of my abilities. And then he says, at the end of the day, there was nothing more important to me in my life than the pleasure of my Allah. I always looked at that first and everything else secondary. And then he says, Allahumma inni la aqulu hadha taskita li nafsi. O my mother and O Allah, I'm not saying this to flatter myself. I'm not saying this to, boost up my ego by saying, oh, look what I've done in my life. Rather, Allahumma anta, he's saying, Allahumma anta a'lamun bin, he's saying, Allahumma inni la aqulu hadha taskita li nafsi. وَلَكِنِّي أَقُولُ ذَلِكَ تَزْكِيَةً لِأُمِّي لِتَسْلُو عَنِّي. He says, the reason why I'm saying this is so that my mother can be comforted when I leave this world, and she can be proud of me. She can be proud of me. Sometimes, even if we're not righteous Muslims, it is enough of a motivation to do something that will make our parents proud of us. Before we make decisions about things, think about and of course, parents should not always be educational achievements, certificates, jobs, homes, things of dunya that make parents proud. That's also incorrect. But there should be an element of working in our life for the cause of Allah. And at the back of our mind, we think through ourselves that our motivation is to make our parents proud. Like how Abdullah ibn Zubair is saying, that, oh Allah, I'm not saying this to flatter myself, but I'm saying this so that my mother can keep her head high and she can be proud of herself and how she raised me. Think about it. A mother who knows that her son is respected in the community. I remember I met this one scholar in Houston. I can't forget what he said to me. He said, when I first came here, everyone knew me by my name, and everyone knew my children, that these children are the children of this person. You know how you reference, like, these children, like this, I had a few sons, and all my sons will be referenced, these children are, the father is this person, and they will refer to me as a sheikh, and these are his kids. Now, my son is so recognized in Houston that everyone refers to me as, oh, that person, that's the sheikh's father. That person, they don't even know my name anymore. They refer to me as a sheikh. That's Imam Sahib's father. That's a sheikh's father. And now I'm known in relationship with my son, and I'm known because of him. And that just, he says, this is the proudest moment of my life, that now I'm known through my son, right? Before my children were known through me. It is a beautiful thing. Think about how proud a mother and father would be, knowing that my son or my daughter, how much, whether it's humanitarian effort, whether it's leading taraweeh, whether it's being a khatib, whether it's being a good physician, whatever it is, but we're doing something, and our parents are, of course, the news will spread to our parents, and our parents are finding out about it, and people are going to our parents and saying, your son's such a great person, your daughter's such a great person, she did this, she did this, she did this. This should be our motivation as well. That if we end up leaving this world before our parents, all they will hear about are those hidden stories, those stories that no one knew about. People come up to our parents and say, you know, your son did this, and your daughter used to do this for us, your son used to do this for us. And every time she hears these memories, she's proud of herself. And there are good memories she lives with, and those good memories comfort her. And that's what he's saying over here, that I'm saying this to you to comfort you, O my mother, but not to flatter myself. And at that moment, look what she says over here. She makes dua for him. And look at her dua. She says, Allahumma arham tula dhalika al-qiyam fi al-layl al-tawil, وذلك النحيب والظمء في هواج المدينة ومكة وبره بأبيه وأمه اللهم إني قد سلمته لأمرك فيه ورضيت بما قضيت فقابلني في عبد الله بن زبير بثواب الصابرين والشاكرين. She said, Oh Allah, after making this lengthy dua, that oh Allah, have mercy on my son who used to fast in the middle of the heat of the summer in the Arabian Peninsula, and he used to stand at night, all night. So, oh Allah, have mercy on his thirst, have mercy on his hunger, have mercy on his fatigue. And then she said something, oh Allah, forgive him for his obedience. Birrahu bi abihi wa ummihi. I testify that this son of mine was always obedient to me, always obedient to his father, always respectful to his mother and father. I mean, mothers and fathers that are our parents, like, of course they could say it with their tongue, but Allah listens to the dua of the heart. Would our parents actually say that with their heart? Because if they were to say it from their heart, Allah would instantly listen to their prayers. Today, my brothers and sisters, unfortunately, many of the prayers of our parents is just from the tongue, they just do it, but it's not from the heart, because we are not doing enough to get to their hearts. We're not doing enough to make them proud. So Allah make us among those who can reflect over the life of Abdullah ibn Zubair. And this was the last moment he met his mother. He hugged his mother. She said, اقترب مني لأتشم راحتك. She said, hug me, come close to me, because most likely it's going to be our last time, so I can just smell you because I can't see you. And he was wearing armor, and she said, what is this? And he said, I'm wearing this so that you don't get afraid, maybe I could survive. And she said, no, I did not give you birth because of this. Take that armor off and go in the path of Allah and achieve martyrdom in the path of Allah. And then he says, oh mother, I'm only afraid of one thing. And she said, what are you afraid of? And he says, I'm afraid that these people will cut my body into pieces, and after I pass away, and they might skin me and mutilate me. And the mother looked at her son and she said, oh my son, once the animal is slaughtered, it does not feel the pain of skinning. Once you have become shaheed, don't worry about it. Allah has accepted your life. Allah make us among those who can truly have conversations, meaningful conversations with our parents, and our parents can have meaningful conversation with the children, and we can live our life in one of our motivations, which is to make Allah proud, to make Allah happy, to make our Prophet ﷺ proud on the Day of Judgment, and also to make our parents proud in this world, that if we end up leaving this world before them, the memories that they're hearing from people around us are such memories that it keeps their spirits uplifted and it comforts them. Jazakallah khair. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.